Greetings, metalheads. Welcome to another edition of the Friday 13th YouTube channel. Thanks for checking in. So today you're going to be watching part one of two parts with an interview with Jeff Dunn, aka Mantis, from the band Venom Inc. Now in part one, we're talking about the history of Venom, how the band started, and Jeff's influences. So enjoy. Part two will be coming soon. Please share on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So enjoy, metalheads, and thank you, Jeff, for doing this interview. You're such a great person, funny. We had a good laugh in this interview, folks. So it's a canny interview, Jeff. Take care, everybody. Be safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for watching. To everybody on Facebook, I'm interviewing Jeff Mantis, or Jeff Dunn from Venom Inc., formerly Venom. So, Jeff, welcome to Friday 13th YouTube channel.
Thank you very much, matey, boy, and that.
So I'm going to ask you some warm-up questions first. Now, you were born like in Newcastle back in the 70s, wasn't you? Sorry, was it the 60s or 70s you were born?
Oh, I was born in the 60s, 1961.
Right.
Yep.
So what was it like living in Newcastle back in the day?
Oh, yeah, fucker. Do you know what it is, mate? I'm on I joined one of these Facebook groups things, and it was old historical photographs of Newcastle. And I used to have everybody knows I had a martial arts gym for like 19 years in the city centre, and it was in a bit called Carlisle Square. And that used to be an old prison. And I found some photographs of it from Victorian ages, you know, and I was like, fucking hell, I mean, it's a huge building. It's all offices and gyms and stuff like that now, you know. But there was a notification came through. Somebody had put some pictures up, and there was a photograph of the main street in Newcastle, which is Northumberland Street. That's the main drag where all the big, like Marks and Spencer's and all the big department stores are. And it was from 1961, and, you know, the year I was born. And it was a black and white photograph. And I looked and I was like, fucking hell. It looked Victorian. You know, it was amazing to see the change I mean, you know, I'm 61 now. And in that amount of time, you know, and then I've been looking at photographs of the 70s and the 80s. Obviously, my musical growing up started in the 70s, you know, sort of 71, 72, T-Rex, Slade, and the Sweet and everything. I sort of came up through the glam era, you know. But obviously, the 80s were massive in Newcastle for rock and metal.
Yeah, it was.
Huge. You know, everybody in Newcastle was a rocker or a metal kid, you know. And I've always said, and it's true as well, that in Newcastle in the sort of early 80s, even the late 70s to early 80s, you were in the Priest camp or you were in the Sabbath camp, you know. And the Priest camp appreciated the Sabbath camp, and the Sabbath camp appreciated the Priest camp. But you were a diehard fan of one of them, you know. And I mean, I was obviously Judas Priest.
Same here.
I say good man. But you know, like I say, all the Priest fans, you know, they were all like, oh yeah, Sabbath, blah blah blah. But great scene back then. Great. I mean, me and the lad that I actually started Venom with. I mean, I met him at a taekwondo club in 1976. That's when I started training taekwondo. My martial arts training started, when would that have been? 61, probably 72. I was 10, 11-year-old when I started training in the martial arts. And then in 1976, taekwondo came into the Northeast. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have some of that. So I went along. And I was 15 when I joined up there. And it was a brand new club. And I mean, the martial arts was huge at that point. You know, Bruce Lee was still in the cinemas and stuff. And, you know, everybody at the club the club was 60 strong. There was 60 people in that club. It was Lightfoot Sports Centre in Walker. And Walker's like a suburb outside of Newcastle. And down from Walker, you've then got Wallsend. It's a walk away. It's a stone's throw away. But Wallsend, obviously, neat records. So everything, you know, as I've been writing this book that I'm doing, there's loads of places and names and things which are all interconnected. Maybe it's not immediately, but like a few years apart, you think, fucking hell, that's come back. You know, everything's cyclic and goes round. But, you know, at this club, everybody's making new friends and all, like, you know, how are you? And I was one of the youngest members of the club. And I just got cracking to this lad called Dave. And he was into Deep Purple. And loved Richie Blackmore and stuff. So, you know, I was like, oh, I had just discovered, like, at 76, I had just discovered Kiss and stuff like that, you know. So we had a common ground there with the martial arts and then obviously with the music. And then lo and behold, he had just got a guitar. He had just started playing guitar. I had just got a guitar, got my first electric. So we just started messing about. And that honestly was the beginning of Venom. You
Wow.
know?
I mean, I've got a black belt myself, but it's in origami.
I've got my black belt in Taekwondo, black belt Aikido, and black belt freestyle. And I trained in jiu-jitsu and everything as well. I trained in a lot of different things. I used to go to any club I could and learn. But me graded arts are Taekwondo, freestyle, and Aikido. And then I started the full-time dojo in, what was that, 1990, and I had that for 19 years.
Wow.
Before I sort of just packed up and left England. But fond memories of those days growing up in Newcastle. I mean, we had every Saturday afternoon, all the rock and metal kids would congregate in a place called the Handyside Arcade. And along from the Handyside Arcade was the Percy Arms, which was a biker bar. And then you had the Farmer's Rest, which was across the road, which was a rock bar. But the Percy Arms is where we had the first meeting with Abaddon and Clive Archer for Venom, you know. I had put a notice in a music store called Rock City, and I had two drummers to meet on this day. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing, to be brutally honest. I mean, there was me and Dave, we were just making a racket. I didn't even think my guitars were tuned the same, you know. And the first drummer that turned up was Abaddon, you know. And we got on really well, you know. And so I made a hasty exit out of the shop, and I thought, well, he'll do, you know, and that was it, you know. And at that point, I had this bass player called Dean, who was an absolute Geddy Lee freak. He was a bit older than us, but fucking incredible fucking bass player, far better than us, you know. We were just making a noise, and we had this drummer, and his audition, we met him on a road. It's in another suburb of Newcastle called Byker, like the East End. There's a road called Shields Road, and it was all like shops and stuff. So we met this kid there, and we went back to his house, and his audition was to sit and play along the, I think it was side 2 of the Genesis live album, Seconds Out. You know, and he's playing all these fucking Phil Collins stuff and all that, and we were like, fucking hell, he's a bit good, you know. But anyway, that was the beginnings of the band. And we had a vocalist. We had a coloured lad on vocals actually for the beginning of it. I cannot remember his name. I remember he was a really nice kid, but it just wasn't what I was looking for. You know, I mean, I didn't even know what I was looking for, to be perfectly honest. But I just know I was getting more and more into being a noise merchant. You know, and then I suppose, you know, discovering Priest in '79 and. There's an album that, you know, since, like I say, since writing the book, there's an album I've got to give more credit to than anything really for my early songwriting, and that's Motorhead Overkill. You know, I mean, one of the first songs we jammed out as Venom, as, you know, Kronos, Mantis, Abaddon, and Clive Archer as that 4-piece, which was, I suppose, you know, Dave Rutherford was in as a 5-piece at that point as the rhythm guitarist, and then he left and Conrad took over that, you know. I mean, the girl I'm with now, Anita, we were together when we were 15 and 17, and that's how I met Conrad, because Conrad was going out with her best friend, you know. So, and then when Venom took off, me and her split up, and we didn't see each other for 32 years, and then lo and behold, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago, I got a Facebook message, "Hello, stranger, how are you doing?" I'm like, fucking hell. So that's how we came to Portugal, you know.
Right.
But great memories of those early days. You know, I mean, even, you know, like little anecdotes. Like I remember an early Venom rehearsal, and I mean, me dad, bless him, he was a drummer, and he was into his big band and swing music. But I think secretly he liked a bit of Slade as well. You know, he was into a bit of rock as well. You know, secretly. But I remember we'd been rehearsing up at Westgate Road Church Hall, and my dad was letting us use the garage to store me stuff, and he had financed a Marshall JCM 800 with a 4x12 and a Flying V, a copy Flying V. And that was me. That was it. I mean, my mum bought us my first guitar, which was a no brand SG copy. It was cherry red. It had one humbucker. It didn't even have a name on the top of it. And I had a little Fender amp and a horrible blue fuzz pedal. I remember that. But it was when I seen KK Downer with a Flying V, it was like, oh, gotta have one of that. But, you know, we could never afford Gibsons and Fenders and all that kind of stuff. So everything we had in the early days, apart from me Marshall, everything was just a copy. You know, we'd just buy the cheapest equipment we could and make a racket with it, you know. But one of the first songs we jammed out was Loving You Sunday Morning, the Scorpions. And I was like, I mean, we made a right fucking arse of that, I'll tell you. I mean, I come back from this rehearsal and my dad had been doing some painting and he was painting the outside of the house and he was cleaning his brushes, and we had a big back garden. We lived on a corner, so it was a big long back garden, you know. And I was wheeling my 412 up the garden path, and he had painted Venom on the fence in white paint, you know. When he was just getting the paint off his brush, painted Venom. I was like, fucking, I'll never forget that. Like, but so my dad, you know, he passed away before it happened, you know, before the first record, and I think he would have been his proudest. But I mean, my mum was around to see it, but my mum was a born warrior. She didn't like us going away and all that kind of stuff, you know. I was like, hey, be careful, ooh, you know, all this kind of stuff, you know. But having said that, when I was a young'un, she'd take us all out of the UK to get me fucking head kicked in at competitions and stuff. I can remember being on the train with her and my auntie, going down to some competition and coming back like this, you know. I was a young absolutely fucked up. But you never saw the band, you know. And then when we did that Alan Robson thing, which was all set up anyway, you know, where we smashed the radio station up and all this, and my mum didn't get out the house for about 2 weeks. She was totally ashamed. I mean, it was in the local papers, it was on the news, it was all over the place. First time she went to the shops, she was, like all her friends and the neighbours were like, was that your Jeffrey on the radio? I was like, fucking, she's walking away like, oh, fuck it.
So the name Venom, was that the first name you had, Jeff? Was that the first name?
Yeah, that was it. I mean, you know what it is? I'm not going to say who, but I've read all this. I mean, again, I'm putting a lot of stuff straight in the book. And I did an interview last night and they asked about how the book was coming on and stuff. And I said, there's a lot of people are not going to enjoy this book. You know, it's going to break a lot of myth about the band and stuff, you know. But I want the truth out there because I've read so much fucking shite from, you know, people who just make it up as they go along, you know, and people who were actually there at the time just creating their own fucking reality about it. I mean, one person, oh yeah, well, I joined a Judas Priest tribute band, and I was like, fuck off, you didn't join. We used to play Green Manalish, right? It's not even a Priest song. It's a Peter Green song.
Yeah,
we tried to play the Ripper one day, and we couldn't have failed worse if we tried to play fucking the Ripper on National Fail to Play the Ripper Day. We made a complete fucking abortion of it, right? It was give up. And the only reason we did that was because Clive Archer was a massive Priest fan as well. And the first time I met him, he had a fucking pair of jeans on with the Ripper embroidered down one leg. You know, he had done it all himself. So that was an instant connection there with Clive straight away, you know. But no, Venom was the first name. There was never anything else. There was an idea that I discussed at that first meeting in the Percy Arms, way before Conrad joined. Conrad was the last one to join at my invitation, right? And he came in just as a fucking rhythm guitarist from that meeting at a girlfriend's house, you know? And that was just because we were too lazy to fucking advertise for another guitarist. And when he said he was doing a yop scheme at, where basically he was making fucking tea at Neat Records, my ears went, oh, hello, it's a recording studio, because me and Dave had already been down there and walked away with our tails between our legs because we couldn't afford it, you know. So, yeah, it was down to him. We got some downtime in the studio, you know, just with him bugging Dave Woods. But no, the first idea I had was, it was Guillotine, but there was never a logo and the band was never called that. It was just something that was rattling around in my head. And then it was a lad who used to hang about at rehearsals. And I'm sure it was the lad who had the motorbike that I was sitting on the back of Black Metal. You know, that fucking porn fucking star shot on the back of Black Metal, you know, on the motorbike. Even now I look at that and go, fucking hell, man. You know what? It was the 80s. That's my excuse, and I'm fucking sticking to it.
It's the good years, mate. It's the best years, 80s.
But I'm sure it was that lad, and I'm sure his name was Kev Devlin. And we were just sitting about, and we didn't even have a fucking name. And I'm sure it was him that just went, what about Venom? And we just looked at it and went, that'll do. And that was it. It was as simple as that. There was no discussion. There was no, I will put that into the hat. We'll put it in the pot. We'll see what. No, that was it. Venom. That was it. And then, funny enough, when we started getting a bit of a name for ourselves with Kerrang and stuff, you know, there was another band called Venom in Manchester.
All right.
And I mean, fucking hell, they were straight out the glam rock book, you know. It was all they had this. They were using flash bombs and all this kind of stuff, you know. So there was one time, Kerrang had said, "We're going to do this article, and we want to know, sort of, you know, they're going to put forward their case for keeping the name Venom, and would like you to do the same." So they fucking, I can't even remember what they said, but they went on this rant about like, yeah, well, we've been Venom for so many years, blah 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 blah. We went, change your name or we're coming to Manchester to kick your fucking heads in. And that was it. Game over. But no, those early days, fond memory, even fond memories of the three of us together before the success and the fame hit, you know, way before that. As soon as the success and the fame was instant, it was overnight. It was so fast. We literally didn't have to work for it. And I mean, all those songs on Welcome to Hell, they were all my first attempts at writing songs. There was nothing changed or anything. You know, it was just a riff. If I came up with that stuff today, I would probably stick it in the delete button bin. You know, it was like, but back then, it was all I had. You know, yeah. I've said for ages, you know, once I discovered a fucking power chord and the first position of the pentatonic scale, I was trying to write my own stuff. And the first song I ever wrote was Red Light Fever. And it ends up on an album. And then Angel Dust and, you know, Live Like an Angel and League with Satan. They're so simple. And they're all blues and rock and roll progressions. That's all it is. There's nothing dodgy and satanic about it or anything like that. It's just what we did to them when we got in. I think it was the ineptitude of us as musicians. You know, because everybody on Neat Records was a far better band or far better musicians than we were. You know, I'll be the first to admit that. They were all, you know, hard-working bands and fucking good musicians and practiced their craft and everything like that. We went in there, made a fucking noise, and the world loved it. And I don't know why. You know, it could have been anybody. But at that particular point, the stars aligned, went boom, straight into Newcastle, and says, right, them three raggy ass motherfuckers down there, they're going to be the next big thing. I mean, and that's what happened.
I mean, you guys like the Godfathers of black metal. I mean, everybody say you're the black metal god of guitars. All hail Mantus.
Oh, no.
I mean,
what it is? Go on, carry on.
No, I was just going to say. I mean, your name Mantus is like it's become like an honour because Chuck from Death called his first band Mantus before Death, didn't they? You got the name from him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing, you know. I mean, the Bathory, you know. I mean, where did you get that name from? You know what it is? The first photograph I ever seen of that guy, Cawthorne, I seen the photograph, and I actually turned to our manager, Eric, at that point, and I went, when did Conrad do that? I was convinced it was Conrad. You know, the first photograph I seen of that guy, I think he had the shorts on and he was doing all the fucking bits and pieces, you know. But here's a fact for you, and I'm totally honest about this. I have never heard a Bathory song in my life.
Really? I've actually interviewed him once. He seems like a real nice guy. But it was like 25 years ago I got the chance to interview him.
Right. I mean, I've never heard a Bathory song, ever. I'm not that familiar with fucking Slayer. To be perfectly honest, I know that one.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the things that stopped me from exploring all that stuff and listening to it all, and I didn't want any of it in here. I didn't want any of it as an influence, because at that point we were the influence.
You had the Godfathers of black metal, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've seen this thing so many times about, like, well, you know, of Venom really black metal? It's like, whoa, hold on.
Definitely are,
right.
definitely.
Okay, right. Let's say this. Are Venom actually black metal? Right. Are you actually black metal because you followed us and you just took the name? Simple as that. Now, who had a song called black metal? Who had an album called black metal?
I think it was the Bee Gees one. Was it the Bee Gees or ABBA? There's one of them bands.
That was the one, Bee Gees. Yeah, I knew it was somebody like that. But do you know what it is? That I think the argument is mute. There's one thing Conrad came out with in an interview. It wasn't that long ago, actually, just a few years ago, which I totally agreed with. I mean, there's a lot of things where I've read that I've just went, on what planet? And you know, it's like, then he came out with this thing saying maybe they should have called themselves something different. You know, with the corpse paint and all this kind of stuff. You know, it's like, because it's so far removed from what we originally did. The term black metal was a term to alienate and individualize us from the mainstream, to take us away from all that. And it is true that we were doing an interview and there was a copy of Kerrang on a coffee table and Bon Jovi was on the front cover. And we said, if that's what you call heavy metal, then we've got nothing in common with that, which was just a true statement. It was like, we haven't got anything, you know, we don't sing Living on a Fucking Prayer, you know? And the journalist, press being press and all that, they've got to put you in a box, pigeonhole you. He was like, well, what are you then? You know, and that's when it came out, black metal.
I mean, you guys are so massive back in the day. I mean, you've influenced so many bands like Metallica. I mean, I'm very surprised Metallica haven't took you on tour. I'm real surprised.
I know.
Why? Are they scared in case you blow them off?
Yeah, fucking pussies. No, I love Metallica. I love James. I love Lars. I love Kirk. And I mean, when we toured with them, Cliff was still around, bless him. And I've met the guys a few times since all this kind of stuff, you know, and they are the sweetest guys. And I remember the last time I spoke to James. James actually came to see Venom Inc. in San Francisco. And he was in the balcony headbanging all night, singing the songs, everything. Then he came backstage, he was talking and everything. And I remember saying to him there and then, I says, mate, I've got to say this. And that is, you deserve everything that you've got. Every success that you have got, every accolade, you deserve it because you worked so fucking hard for it. And they did. And I remember the last time they actually opened for us was at the Lorelei Festival in 1985. And they fucking destroyed us. Absolutely fucking destroyed us that night. They were so together, so slick, and they had the audience. James, his craft as a frontman was amazing. And look where they are now. The biggest metal band on the fucking planet.
I mean, you know? I personally think that Venom should do Metallica should do a festival with you guys on the bill, Raven, Tigers of Pantang, all the bands they grew up with. Just have a Metallica festival with just all the classic bands from England that they grew up with. That'd be a great tour. That'd be fantastic.
Oh, it'd be great. I tell you what, I'll be totally up for that. Absolutely. You know, if James ever contacted me and says, right, we're doing this, I'll be like, okie dokie, where do I meet you?
Well, I put the idea in your head, so I want some money from that fucker, I tell you.
Dr. James Hadfield.
All right then, Jeff, so I'm going to move on slightly and talk about the two first albums, Welcome to Hell and Black Metal. Which one would you say is the cult classic of those two?
Whoa. Hey, I've never had that one before. The cult classic. Oh, God. Do you know what it is? I suppose just by definition of the name itself, it's got to be black metal to start an entire genre.
Yeah.
And for that genre to still be active today is incredible. It's absolutely amazing. And I mean, that's why we, as Venom Inc., we're doing the 40th anniversary shows for the black metal album, playing it in its entirety. So just by definition of that, I would say, it probably has to be that. But for me, I always go back to Welcome to Hell because it was my first album that I ever held. It was like, that's my band. Yeah. We're in those grooves, we're on that plastic, and that's me on the back cover and all that kind of stuff. So when people say, what's your favorite Venom album? I mean, I've got to go back to Welcome to Hell. But I mean, I think both of those albums, dare I say this, I think they're both equally as important as the other. And do you know what it is? In the book, there's a chapter that I'm busy writing. It's called The Dreaded Second Album. And when a band has an album which creates so much impact, as their first release, the worry is, how the fuck do we follow that?
Yeah, it's like it's like your first album's the best album ever. How are you going to compete?
Yeah. And you know how we competed? We didn't give a shit.
You just got drunk.
We just didn't even fucking think about it. We just continued the way we were. And I remember distinctly the first song that I wrote specifically for black metal was the music to Leave Me in Hell. And then we were rehearsing in a school hall, and Conrad came in and he had some lyrics, and he put those lyrics to the music that I had, and that was Leave Me in Hell. So that was the first song that I wrote specifically. But Buried Alive and Raise the Dead, they were written in 1979. There's demos with Clive Archer singing those songs. And we just didn't put them on the first album. I just don't think we could play them good enough. We just didn't do them justice, Yeah. So they were sort of shelved for a while, and then they came out on the black metal album. But obviously now that we're going to be going out, and as Venom Inc, we're going to go out and play the album in its entirety, in order, straight through. There's no talking, there's nothing. It's just us, music, and pyrotechnics. And revisiting all those songs. I mean, there's a lot of them we still play in the set. Countess Battery and black metal, and Don't Burn the Witch, Leave Me in Hell. They're all there. The songs, those kind of songs, and even songs of Welcome to Hell, as Venom Inc. and as Venom, you'd never get out of a hole alive if you didn't play some of those songs.
Yeah.
It's to have a catalogue like that it's incredible. Because I know there's a lot of bands from the 80s have that one song that everybody waits for. I remember being in Italy with Empire of Evil, and we went to a venue to see a new wave of British heavy metal band. I'm not gonna name them, but I loved this band. So they were playing this venue this night, so we had a night off. So it was like, okay, then let's go and see them. And the place was full, great club, and they played well. And then they played that one song, and the place went fucking mental. Venom, we seem to have a bag full of those songs. The weirdest thing for me ever was standing on stage in Beijing, in China, and hearing a Chinese audience singing Countess Battery. I wrote that song when I was a kid in my fucking bedroom, still living with my mom. And you think, fucking hell, that's transcended language and culture and everything. It's music's the last universal language we have. You can be at a festival, stand beside somebody that you can't even say hello to. You can't communicate. But as soon as the band comes on stage, your arms around each other, you bounce up and down, you're all singing the same fucking lyrics. I mean, the guy, if it's all in English, the guy next to you might not know what the fuck he's singing about, but he knows the words. And to see that in so many different countries across the world, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
I remember being at a school disco when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, at a primary school disco. Do you remember the Birdie song?
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, the Birdie song was on, then I asked for Venom Bloodlust, and the fucking dance floor just, boom. There was only me and this kid headbanging. 11-year-old Venom fan listening to Bloodlust. I mean, the skull didn't know what hit him.
Fucking hell.
And I've still actually got that single. I've still actually own it, the same single.
All right.
Yeah,
Oh,
little 7-inch single.
my God. That was another thing, with us was, doing the albums. We never put, the singles were always different. So you got like a Die Hard, a Seven Gates, a Warhead, fucking, Bloodlust, all that kind of stuff, But they didn't appear on like the official first release of albums until much later when, everybody's sticking compilations together and re-releasing everything a million times, But, I mean, it's incredible to think that the genre is still around now. But, as I say, you have to evolve, and without evolution, you become extinct. Yeah. So what these bands who followed us, whoever they are, and put the corpse paint on, you've got to remember as well that back in 1979, our singer was wearing that shit, and we thought it was a bit Alice Cooper Kiss, and it was like, oh, I don't know if we'll get away with that, But Clive Archer was wearing all that stuff, and it wasn't theatrical fucking stuff either. You know what it was? It was old-fashioned whitewash, right? Like right. Paint, right? We used to paint his fucking face with a fucking brush and then blow dry it with a hairdryer. And then he used to do all this with his face. And it all used to crack and peel off. And then would pour fucking blood. We used to get blood from the joke shop down from the rehearsal place, pour all that into it. And that was his makeup, And then years and years later, look what's happening, So it's, we didn't do it because we thought it was a bit, I don't know. But I think, sometimes with it, it's, I don't know. I mean, the new album, the new Venom Inc. album, we're talking about human darkness. It's not, demons and devils and fucking angels and all that. Yeah, fuck off. Doesn't exist. Man is the demon. Man is the god. We can be good or we can be bad. It's as simple as that. And you're not going to find anything more sickening than what you see on the fucking news channels. I've just come down from the house there. There's been a 4-year-old little girl just killed in a fucking missile attack in the Ukraine, and her mother's just lost her leg. And they've just shown a video hours before the attack where the little girl was pushing her own pushchair through the fucking streets with her mum. And then hours later, she's gone. Now, demons, devils, fuck off. None of that did any of that. It was somebody who pushed a button. It was a human being. Yeah. So, I mean, we can be the most benevolent, good, fucking, love thine, everything. We can be the most amazing creatures, but we are also the most despicable pieces of shit on the planet. Yeah. When it comes down to it, we're things of vast opposites, and that's what we speak about now, rather than all this fucking ghoulies and fucking horns and all that.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing you did in the old days, just to get the hype on it, to shock everybody.
Yeah.
It was a shock band back in the day.
It was shock. I got asked that question ages ago when I did that. What was it I did? Was that Sam Dunn who did all the Metal Evolution and all that stuff, right? There's loads of different genres of metal. And he asked me that question. He says, was it done for shock value? I said, fucking absolutely. Of course it was. It was like, I mean, I remember there was an interview on BBC News, Jeremy Paxton or something like that. And Abaddon did the interview. And Jeremy Paxton went, so, Mr. Abaddon, are you a Satanist? And he went, yeah. Fuck off. You're a fucking Satanist, my arse. None of we were. Fucking hellfire. You couldn't even spell the word, man. Jesus Christ. So, yeah, it was all shock. But, even if you read early Venom lyrics, lyrics that I wrote, lyrics that Conrad wrote, they tell stories. There's no preaching there. It's just all fantasy. It's stories. And the other thing people miss about those early Venom albums is Welcome to Hell. Yes, everybody looks at that and goes, oh my God, it's got a pentagram on the front. Oh, Sagila Baphomet and fucking hell. And no, nobody designed that fucking cover. The Sagila Baphomet has been around for hundreds of years. And, everybody was scared of it and this, that, and the other. There's a song on there called Poison about catching the clap off the local bike. You know, it's like that's what that's about. And then even the big album, Black Metal, there's a song called Teacher's Pet. And the opening line is true, right? Teacher caught me masturbating underneath the desk, right? Now, that opening line, believe it or not, is true. When I was in primary school, we had a religious education teacher, believe it or not, and she was hot stuff. This was in the 70s with mini skirts and high heels and all that. And as little boys, we were just discovering that fucking females had different bits to us, right? So she would sit at the front of the class on the fucking teacher's desk with her legs crossed. All the fucking boys were like,
dropping the pencils.
oh, aye, fucking right, yeah. The little kid next to me had his hands down his pants, right? And that's where that song came from, right? So the opening line is like, teacher caught me masturbating underneath the desk, you know? The rest of it obviously is fantasy, but that was the thing that people missed about Venom, and I think that was inherently because we were Geordies and we had a stupid sense of humor, you know. So, and that always came out in some of the songs as well, you know. But you know, it was there to shock. Would it shock today? Not a hope in hell.